Commander Thex-9 stared at the crumpled heap of organic matter bleeding purple fluid across his pristine command deck. 3 hours ago, this had been Captain Vorth 12, his second in command, a decorated warrior who'd conquered 17 star systems without breaking a sweat. Now, Vorth looked like he'd been put through a meat grinder, then reassembled by a blind mechanic with anger management issues. Explain, Thex-9 hissed, his forearms trembling with barely contained rage. Explain how one single human did this to my finest soldier. The surviving crew members exchanged glances that screamed volumes about their current predicament. Nobody wanted to be the bearer of bad news, especially when that news involved admitting they'd been outmaneuvered by what their intel suggested was nothing more than a primitive dirt farmer. Sub-Commander Nix-7 cleared his throat, a sound like grinding metal. Sir, the human, Marcus Kane, is not exactly what we expected. Oh really? Thex-9's voice dripped with enough sarcasm to corrode hull plating. You mean the creature we abducted for routine experimentation turned out to be less than cooperative? How absolutely shocking. The uncomfortable silence stretched longer than a hyperspace jump. Finally, Nix-7 found his voice again. Sir, perhaps we should review the mission logs. 3 days earlier, the operation had seemed laughably simple. Intelligence reports described Earth humans as weak, emotional creatures who relied on primitive technology and spent most of their time arguing among themselves. Perfect subjects for the Keth Empire's ongoing biological research program. Marcus Kane had been selected almost at random. A 42-year-old agricultural worker from a place called Nebraska, living alone on a farm that produced something called corn. No military background, no advanced education, no apparent skills beyond growing plants and maintaining ancient machinery. Easy target, Vorth 12 had declared, reviewing the surveillance footage. We will be back home before the twin suns set. How wrong they'd been. The abduction itself had gone smoothly enough. Standard procedure. Hover over the target location, deploy the extraction beam, collect the specimen while it slept. Marcus Kane had been unconscious within seconds, secured in a containment pod before he could even process what was happening. But then things started going sideways. The subject regained consciousness faster than anticipated, Nux-7 reported, his voice barely above a whisper. Medical officer Zen-4 estimated the paralysis compound should have kept him unconscious for at least 6 hours. Kane woke up after 47 minutes. Sub-Thex-9 felt his stomach acid churning. And he observed. For the first hour, he just watched everything. Didn't struggle, didn't panic, didn't make any noise. Just studied us like we were specimens in his laboratory. The memory still sent chills down Nux-7's spine. Most abducted species went through predictable stages: confusion, fear, anger, despair, finally submission. Marcus Kane had skipped straight to cold, calculated assessment. Then what happened? He started asking questions. Questions? Tactical questions, sir. About our ship's design, our crew complement, our mission parameters. He seemed particularly interested in our security protocols and command structure. Thex-9's 4 eyes narrowed simultaneously. You didn't answer him, did you? The guilty silence was answer enough. By the void, Thex-9 muttered. Please tell me you didn't give classified information to a primitive test subject. He was very persuasive, sir. Made it seem like casual conversation. Before we realized what was happening, he'd mapped our entire operational framework. The next part of the story made Thex-9's blood pressure spike to dangerous levels. Marcus Kane had somehow convinced the medical team to remove his restraints during the initial examination. Something about cooperation yielding better results, and voluntary participation improving data quality. The human claimed he was a scientist. Medical officer Zen-4 had explained later, before the incident that put him in the medical bay, said he understood the value of research and wanted to contribute to advancing knowledge. Complete lies, of course, but delivered with such conviction that even veteran interrogators might have been fooled. Once free, Marcus Kane had demonstrated capabilities that defied every piece of intelligence they'd gathered about human physiology. He'd disabled 3 security officers using nothing but improvised weapons crafted from medical instruments. His movements were precise, efficient, and absolutely brutal. The human fought like he'd been studying us for years, Nix-7 continued. Knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage, seemed to understand our anatomy better than we understood his. How is that possible? Unknowns, but he adapted to our ship's layout faster than our own crew members did during their first tours, found maintenance shafts we'd forgotten existed, accessed systems that should have been impossible to breach. The real nightmare had begun when Marcus Kane reached the detention level. Instead of trying to escape, he'd systematically freed every prisoner in the holding cells. 17 different species, all with excellent reasons to hate the Keth Empire. He organized them, Nix-7 reported, his voice hollow with disbelief, somehow convinced natural enemies to work together, turned our detention level into a planning center for coordinated rebellion. The human had spent hours studying each species' capabilities, learning their languages, understanding their motivation. Then he'd crafted a battle plan that maximized their strength while minimizing their weaknesses. The Vrex warriors provided muscle, Nix-7 continued. The Toll engineers sabotaged our critical systems. The Quinn telepaths coordinated communication. Kane orchestrated everything like a conductor leading a symphony of destruction. Nix-9 felt his confidence crumbling. How many casualties? 47 crew members in the medical bay. 15 more missing, presumed dead. The Humans Coalition controls decks 7 through 12. And our weapons? Disabled. The Toll engineers followed Kane's instructions perfectly. They have isolated our armory and weaponized our own defensive systems against us. The situation had deteriorated beyond anyone's worst-case scenarios. Marcus Kane wasn't just leading a prisoner revolt. He was conducting a masterclass in asymmetric warfare. Every countermeasure the Keth forces deployed, the Human Coalition had an answer for. He's not fighting like a farmer. Nix-7 observed. He's fighting like someone who's studied military tactics for decades. That's impossible. Our intelligence reports were comprehensive. With respect, sir, maybe our intelligence was wrong. Thex-Dunane considered this possibility. The Keth Empire's information gathering was supposedly flawless, but they'd never encountered humans before. Perhaps there were aspects of human society they'd failed to understand. What's his current position? Engineering section, sir. He's not trying to escape anymore. He's trying to take control of the ship. The audacity was staggering. Marcus Kane had gone from captive to conqueror in less than 72 hours. He'd turned a routine abduction into a complete disaster, and now he was positioning himself to capture an entire Keth warship. Can we contain him? He's anticipated every move we have made so far. Set traps in corridors we didn't know he'd accessed. Turned our own security protocols against us. Nix-9 reviewed the tactical displays, trying to comprehend the scope of their predicament. Red warning lights indicated compromised systems throughout the ship. The Humans Coalition had established control points at strategic locations, creating overlapping fields of fire that made traditional assault tactics suicidal. What about negotiation? He's open to discussion, sir, but his terms are unconventional, such as complete surrender of command authority, recognition of his coalition as legitimate government of this vessel, and safe passage to Cath Prime for what he calls diplomatic discussion. The implications hit Nix-9 like a plasma bolt told the chest. Marcus Kane wasn't just trying to escape, he was trying to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Keth Empire. A human farmer was attempting to negotiate from a position of strength with one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. He's insane. Perhaps, sir. But he's also winning. The comm system crackled with an incoming transmission. The voice that emerged was calm, measured, and absolutely terrifying in its confidence. Commander Nix-9, this is Marcus Kane. I believe we need to talk. Nix-9's 4 hands clenched into fists. What do you want, human? What I have always wanted, to go home to my farm. But circumstances have changed, and I'm afraid that's no longer possible. You are a prisoner aboard my vessel. Actually, I think you will find that situation has reversed itself. Check your command console. Nix-9 glanced at his displays and felt his blood freeze. Every critical system showed red alerts. Life support was operating at minimum levels. Weapons were offline. Navigation was locked. How? Your engineer friends are quite skilled. Amazing what you can accomplish when you treat people with respect instead of as test subjects. The human's voice carried an edge of steel that made seasoned warriors nervous. This wasn't the terrified farmer they'd expected to find. This was someone who'd spent 3 days studying their weaknesses and exploiting them with surgical precision. What are your terms? Simple. You are going to take me home. Not to your laboratories, not to your prisons, but to Earth. And you are going to explain to your superiors why abducting humans is a very bad idea. That's impossible. The Keth Empire doesn't negotiate with primitives. Then the Keth Empire is about to learn some hard lessons about human ingenuity. The transmission cut off, leaving Thex-9 staring at displays that showed his ship slowly but systematically being converted into Marcus Kane's personal weapon. The human had turned their abduction mission into a complete catastrophe, and now he was demanding to be taken home with an escort of former prisoners who'd become his loyal followers. Sir Nix-7 ventured carefully, "What are your orders?" Thex-9 studied the tactical situation one more time. Every instinct screamed at him to fight, to refuse the human's demands, to demonstrate Keth's superiority. But the cold mathematics of warfare told a different story. Marcus Kane had outmaneuvered them completely. He'd turned their own ship into a fortress, their prisoners into allies, and their mission into a diplomatic incident that could reshape galactic politics. "Open a channel," Thex-9 commanded. "Sir?" "Open a channel to Marcus Kane. It appears we have some negotiating to do." The response came immediately, as if the human had been waiting for exactly this moment. "Commander, I'm glad you are being reasonable. Now let's discuss the terms of your surrender." Thex-9 felt his world shifting beneath him. 3 days ago, he'd been a respected military commander, leading a routine operation. Now he was negotiating the surrender of a Keth warship to a human farmer who'd somehow become the most dangerous individual in the galaxy. The worst part, Marcus Kane was just getting started. Marcus Kane sat in what used to be Commander Thex-9's private quarters, reviewing intelligence reports that would have made Earth's most paranoid conspiracy theorists weep with joy. The Keth Empire's classified files painted a picture of galactic politics so twisted that even a simple farmer from Nebraska could see the opportunities. "This is fascinating reading," Marcus commented, his voice carrying that same terrifying calm that had unnerved the crew for weeks. "Did you know your empire has been systematically abducting sentient beings from 47 different star systems?" Thex-9, now reduced to prisoner status in his own ship, shifted uncomfortably in his restraints. "Research purposes. Scientific advancement." Yes. Science." Marcus's laugh could have frozen liquid nitrogen. "Funny how your scientific method involves zero consent, maximum brutality, and convenient disposal of subjects who don't survive your experiments." The human had spent the past week transforming the captured warship into something that defied classification. Part diplomatic vessel, part mobile fortress, part traveling circus of liberated prisoners who'd become his most devoted followers. The Vrex warriors now served as his personal guard. The Toll engineers maintained his technological edge, and the Quinn telepaths provided intelligence networks that made the Empire's spy services look like amateur hour. "Your government is going to be very unhappy with you," Thex-9 observed, trying to salvage some dignity from his situation. "My government?" Marcus grinned, an expression that made seasoned killers nervous. "Which government would that be? The one that abandoned me the moment I disappeared? The one that probably declared me legally dead after 3 days? Or perhaps you mean the new government I'm establishing right here on this ship?" The implications hit Thex-9 like a meteor strike. Marcus Kane wasn't planning to return to Earth as a victim seeking justice. He was planning to return as the leader of a multi-species coalition with enough firepower to level continents. "You are insane if you think Earth will accept you as some kind of returning hero." "Oh, I'm not going back as a hero," Marcus replied, his tone suggesting Thex-9 had missed the point entirely. "I'm going back as their new protector. Someone who understands exactly what's lurking in the dark between the stars." The past week had been a masterclass in strategic thinking that would have impressed generals from a dozen different civilizations. Marcus Kane had systematically catalogued every piece of intelligence about Earth's location, defensive capabilities, and strategic value. What he'd found had kept him awake for 72 hours straight. Earth is listed as a priority target for 3 different expansion campaigns. Marcus continued, waving a datapad that contained enough classified information to start wars. The Keth Empire plans to harvest our population for slave labor. The Zor Federation wants to strip mine our planet for rare minerals, and the Hex Collective has marked us for complete extermination because they consider humans a potential threat to galactic stability. Standard protocol for primitive species. Primitive. Marcus savored the word like fine wine. You know what's primitive? Assuming that a species' technological development reflects their capacity for strategic thinking. You made that mistake with me, and now you are making it with my entire species. The human stood and walked to the viewing port, gazing out at the stars with the expression of someone who'd discovered terrible truths about the universe. I have been thinking about this for days. Earth has maybe 50 years before one of these galactic powers decides we are worth conquering. Our governments are too busy fighting each other to prepare for external threats. Our military technology is laughably outdated compared to what I have seen on this ship. So what's your plan? Become some kind of dictator. Dictator? Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm going to become something much more useful. I'm going to become Earth's first line of defense against threats they don't even know exist. The conversation was interrupted by Sub-Commander Nix 7, who'd adapted to his new role as Marcus's liaison with surprising grace. Sir, we are receiving communications from the Keth homeworld. They want to negotiate for Commander Thex 9's release. Excellent timing, Marcus replied. Tell them I'm happy to discuss terms. But the negotiations will take place on Earth, with representatives from every major world government present. They will never agree to that. They will when they realize the alternative is explaining to their superiors how they lost a state-of-the-art warship to a primitive farmer. Marcus had spent considerable time studying Keth military doctrine, and he'd identified their greatest weakness, pride. The Empire's entire power structure depended on maintaining an image of technological and tactical superiority. Admitting that humans could outmaneuver them would shatter their credibility with allies and enemies alike. The negotiations will serve multiple purposes, Marcus explained to his gathered coalition. First, they will establish formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the Keth Empire. Second, they will demonstrate to Earth's governments that threats exist beyond their current understanding. Third, they will provide me with the perfect opportunity to share some interesting intelligence about planned invasions. The Vrex captain, a 7-foot-tall warrior named Grok II, nodded approvingly. You fight like Vrex. Think 10 moves ahead. I think 100 moves ahead, Marcus corrected. By the time we reach Earth, I will have contingency plans for every possible scenario. The human strategic thinking had evolved far beyond simple survival. He'd studied the intelligence reports, analyzed the political dynamics, and identified opportunities that could reshape galactic civilization. Earth's primitive status was actually an advantage. Nobody expected a backward planet to produce someone capable of outthinking advanced civilization. What about your family? Thex 9 asked, genuinely curious. Don't you want to see them again? Marcus's expressions softened for the first time in weeks. My wife died 6 years ago, cancer. My kids live in different states, have their own family. The farm was all I had left, and you took me away from it. So this is revenge? This is necessity. The hardness returned to Marcus's voice. I can't go back to growing corn and pretending the universe is safe. Not after what I have learned. Earth needs someone who understands the threats coming our way, and apparently that someone is me. The ship's communications system activated, broadcasting a message that would become legendary in galactic history. This is Marcus Kane speaking on behalf of the Terran Defense Coalition. We are approaching Earth with a diplomatic mission of critical importance. I am requesting immediate communication with the United Nations Security Council, the European Union, the African Union, and representatives from every major world government. The response was immediate and predictable. Confusion, disbelief, and demands for verification. Marcus had anticipated this reaction and prepared accordingly. I understand your skepticism, he continued. 3 weeks ago, I was abducted from my farm in Nebraska by representatives of the Keth Empire. Since then, I have learned that Earth is considered a target for conquest by multiple galactic civilizations. I am returning with intelligence that could determine whether humanity survives the next century. The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the flood of questions. demands and threats that Marcus had expected. To verify my identity and credentials, I am transmitting the following information. Marcus activated a data stream containing satellite imagery of his own abduction, detailed intelligence about Earth's defensive capabilities, and strategic assessments that could only have come from advanced alien sources. You have 48 hours to convene a joint session of world leaders. The alternative is watching your planet become a battlefield between civilizations you never knew existed. The next 2 days passed in a blur of frantic communications, emergency sessions, and global panic carefully managed by governments trying to maintain order. Marcus used the time to prepare his coalition for what would be the most important diplomatic mission in human history. Remember, he told his diverse team of former prisoners, we are not invaders, we are educators. These people need to understand the reality of their situation without becoming paralyzed by fear. The landing at a secure facility in Nevada was witnessed by representatives from every major world government, military leaders, and scientists who'd been hastily briefed on the situation. Marcus Kane emerged from the alien vessel wearing clothes that had been improvised from ship materials, looking like a farmer who'd spent 3 weeks in hell and emerged as something entirely different. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, addressing the assembled crowd with the same calm confidence that had conquered a warship. We have a lot to discuss. The briefing that followed lasted 18 hours and changed everything. Marcus presented evidence of planned invasions, detailed analyses of Earth's defensive inadequacies, and strategic recommendations that would require unprecedented global cooperation. The Keth Empire alone has the capability to sterilize our planet within hours, he explained, displaying holographic projections that made the audience collectively hold their breath. The Zor Federation could strip mine our continents while we are still trying to figure out how to fight back. And the Hex Collective considers us enough of a potential threat that they have scheduled us for complete extermination. What do you propose? Asked the Secretary General of the United Nations. I propose we stop pretending we are alone in the universe and start preparing for the war that's coming whether we want it or not. Marcus outlined a comprehensive defense strategy that would require technological advancement, military cooperation, and diplomatic initiatives that seemed impossible to implement. Then he revealed his trump card. I have a fully functional Keth warship with a crew of liberated prisoners who have agreed to serve as Earth's first line of defense. I have access to advanced technology that could accelerate our development by century, and I have detailed intelligence about every major threat currently targeting our planet. In exchange for what? In exchange for the authority to do what needs to be done. I'm not asking to rule Earth. I'm asking for the resources and support necessary to defend it. The negotiations that followed were complex, heated, and ultimately successful. Marcus Kane was granted unprecedented authority to establish Earth's first interstellar defense force, with resources drawn from every major world government and oversight from a joint committee of military and civilian leaders. 6 months later, Commander Thex-9 found himself in the bizarre position of serving as military advisor to the human who'd once been his prisoner. The Keth Empire had agreed to a non-aggression pact in exchange for avoiding the embarrassment of explaining how they'd lost a warship to a primitive farmer. You realize this can't last, Thex-9 observed during one of their planning sessions. Eventually, someone will challenge your authority. Let them. Marcus replied, reviewing tactical displays that showed Earth's rapidly improving defenses. By the time they figure out what they are dealing with, we will be ready for them. The human had transformed from simple farmer to interstellar strategist in less than a year. His coalition of former prisoners had become the core of Earth's defense force, training human recruits in advanced combat techniques while human engineers reverse-engineered alien technology. Besides, Marcus added with a grin that had become famous throughout the galaxy, I learned something important during my brief career as a farmer. What's that? Sometimes the best defense is making sure everyone knows you are too much trouble to mess with. As Marcus Kane stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching Earth's first interstellar defense fleet conduct training exercises, he reflected on the strange path that had brought him here. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a simple farmer worried about corn prices and equipment maintenance. Now he was the guardian of an entire planet, responsible for preparing humanity for threats they'd never imagined. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of civilizations that considered humans nothing more than resources to be harvested. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed that primitive meant weak. Marcus Kane was about to teach them the difference. The farmer had become a protector, the prisoner had become a commander, and Earth had gained a defender who understood exactly what was at stake. The galaxy would never be the same. 2 years after his return, Marcus Kane stood in the war room of Earth's primary defense station, orbiting high above the planet he'd sworn to protect. The facility buzzed with activity as human technicians worked alongside alien engineers, creating weapons systems that would have seemed like magic just a few years earlier. "Admiral Kane," came a voice from behind him. Marcus turned to see Captain Elena Vasquez, one of Earth's first graduates from the Accelerated Space Warfare program. "We are receiving long-range sensor data from the outer perimeter. What do we have?" 3 Zor Federation scout ships, maintaining position at the edge of our detection range. "They have been watching us for 6 days. Marcus nodded, unsurprised. The Zor had been testing Earth's defenses for months, probing for weaknesses while maintaining plausible deniability. "Any response to our standard warning?" "They are claiming to be conducting scientific surveys of local star systems." "Of course they are." Marcus activated the tactical display showing the positions of Earth's defensive fleet. 27 ships, all equipped with hybrid human-alien technology, maintained patrol patterns that would have seemed impossible when he first returned from space. "Captain, signal the Zor vessels. Inform them that their scientific surveys are welcome, but they will need to submit to escort protocols if they wish to approach within 10 light minutes of Earth." "Yes, sir." The interaction was routine now, but Marcus remembered when such encounters would have meant certain doom for humanity. Earth's rapid technological advancement had surprised even his most optimistic projections. Human adaptability, combined with alien engineering principles, had produced innovations that impressed even the Keth Empire's most experienced scientists. "Admiral," another voice called out. This one belonged to Dr. Chen Wei, Earth's leading expert in alien psychology and Marcus's closest human advisor. "We have received a priority transmission from the Galactic Council." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. The Galactic Council was the closest thing to interstellar government that existed, a loose confederation of advanced civilizations that maintained peace through carefully balanced threats and mutual deterrence. Earth wasn't a member, but they'd been monitoring human activities with increasing interest. "What do they want?" "They are requesting a formal meeting. It seems our recent defensive improvements have attracted attention from some very powerful entities." Marcus reviewed the transmission, noting the formal language and implicit threats woven throughout the diplomatic text. The Council was essentially demanding that Earth explain itself, justify its rapid militarization, and submit to oversight from civilizations that viewed humans as barely evolved primitives. "They are scared," Marcus observed, recognizing the pattern from his extensive study of galactic politics. 24 months ago, Earth was considered a minor resource extraction target. Now we are building weapons that could threaten established powers. Is that a problem? It's exactly what I hoped would happen. Marcus activated the communication system, preparing to record a response that would be studied by alien strategists for decades. "Doctor, please inform the Council that Earth would be honored to participate in formal diplomatic relations. However, such meetings will take place on neutral ground, with full security protocols, and with Earth represented as an equal partner in any discussions." "They won't like that." "They don't have to like it. They just have to respect it." The months that followed tested every aspect of Marcus's strategic planning. The Galactic Council meeting took place on a neutral station in the Vega system, with representatives from 43 different civilizations attending. Marcus arrived with a delegation that included humans, liberated prisoners from his original coalition, and enough firepower to level the entire station if negotiations went poorly. The session began with the usual diplomatic pleasantries, but Marcus could sense the underlying tension. Earth's rapid advancement had disrupted carefully maintained power balances, and several council members were openly hostile to human participation in galactic affairs. "The question before us," announced Councillor Drex Prime of the Altarian Republic, "is whether humanity represents a stabilizing or destabilizing force in our region of space." "I would suggest," Marcus replied, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd faced down multiple galactic powers, "that the question is whether this council represents a legitimate governing body or simply a collection of civilizations afraid of competition." The silence that followed was profound. Nobody had challenged the council's authority so directly in living memory. You speak boldly for a representative of primitive world, observed Counselor SCI-FI of the Hex Collective, the same civilization that had marked Earth for extermination. I speak honestly for a world that's tired of being underestimated. Marcus activated a holographic display showing Earth's current defensive capabilities. 2 years ago, you classified us as a minor threat. 6 months ago, you upgraded us to moderate concern. Today, you are debating whether to treat us as equals or enemies. The display showed weapon systems that incorporated the best features of multiple alien technologies, defensive networks that could repel invasion fleets, and strategic capabilities that made Earth effectively unconquerable by conventional means. The Terran Defense Coalition has no interest in conquering other worlds, Marcus continued. We have no desire to expand beyond our home system. We simply want to be left alone to develop our civilization without interference from powers that view us as resources to be harvested. And if we refuse to recognize your territorial claims, Marcus's smile was colder than interstellar space. Then you will discover exactly why the Keth Empire decided that diplomatic relations were preferable to military conflict. The negotiations lasted 3 days and resulted in formal recognition of Earth's sovereignty, establishment of trade agreements with 12 different civilizations, and mutual defense pacts that guaranteed human independence. Marcus had successfully transformed Earth from a target into a power player in galactic politics. But the real victory came 6 months later, when Marcus received an unexpected visitor at his command station. A small transport ship requested permission to dock, carrying a single passenger who identified himself simply as a friend. The visitor turned out to be Ambassador Lox 7 of the Andromedan Collective, a civilization so advanced that they were considered mythical by most galactic powers. The Andromedans rarely interfered in local politics, but they'd been watching Earth's development with considerable interest. Admiral Kane, the ambassador said, his translator producing words that somehow conveyed both respect and amusement. My people have been observing your species for some time. We find your rapid adaptation to galactic realities quite impressive. Thank you, Marcus replied, unsure where this conversation was heading. We would like to offer Earth membership in the Andromedan Collective, full access to our technology, protection from all external threats, and guidance in developing your civilization's potential. It was the offer of a lifetime, the kind of opportunity that could advance human civilization by millennia. Marcus considered it carefully, weighing the benefits against the costs. What would membership require? Submission to Andromedan authority. Acceptance of our guidance in all matters of policy and development. Integration into our social and governmental structures. In other words, you want Earth to become your client state. We prefer the term protected partner. Marcus laughed, a sound that had become famous throughout the galaxy. Ambassador, I appreciate the offer, but I think you have misunderstood something fundamental about human nature. Which is, we didn't fight our way to independence just to hand it over to someone else. Earth will make its own decisions, develop its own capabilities, and determine its own future. We are grateful for your interest, but we will handle our own affairs. The ambassador's expression suggested that this was not the response he'd expected. You are refusing membership in the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. I'm refusing to trade one form of subjugation for another. Humans have a saying, give me liberty or give me death. We mean. The meeting ended with the ambassador's departure and a newfound respect for human stubbornness throughout the Andromedan Collective. Marcus had turned down the opportunity of a lifetime because it would have compromised Earth's independence. 5 years after his abduction, Marcus Kane stood in the observation lounge of Earth's newest battleship, watching construction crews put finishing touches on humanity's first interstellar colony ship. The vessel would carry 10,000 volunteers to a nearby star system, establishing Earth's first permanent settlement beyond the solar system. Any regrets? Asked Dr. Chin Wei, joining him at the viewing port. About what? About leaving the farm, about becoming responsible for an entire planet's survival, about turning down the Andromedans. Marcus considered the question seriously. His life had changed beyond recognition, transforming from quiet agriculture to galactic strategy. The responsibility was enormous, the pressure constant, and the stakes literally involved the survival of human Nulliwin. No, he said finally. I grew corn for 20 years, fed maybe a few thousand people during my entire farming career. Now I'm helping to ensure that billions of humans can live free from the threat of alien conquest. The galaxy is a dangerous place. It's also full of opportunities. 3 years ago, humans had never left their own solar system. Now we are building colonies, trading with alien civilizations, and developing technology that amazes even advanced species. The colony ship represented more than just expansion. It was proof that humanity had successfully made the transition from isolated world to galactic civilization. Earth's children would grow up knowing that the universe was vast, dangerous, and full of possibilities. There's something else, Dr. Chen said, handing Marcus a datapad. We have been monitoring communications from the Keth Empire. They are requesting permission to establish a permanent diplomatic mission on Earth. Interesting. What's their justification? They claim they want to study human military doctrine for their own defensive improvements. Apparently, our tactical innovations have impressed their strategic command. Marcus grinned. The Keth Empire, which had once considered humans suitable only for experimental subjects, now wanted to learn from human military expertise. The irony was delicious. Grant the request, he decided, but with full security protocols and complete transparency about their activities. You are not concerned about espionage. I'm more concerned about them learning the wrong lessons. Let them study our tactics. By the time they figure out how we think, we will have developed 3 new approaches they have never seen before. The transformation was complete. Marcus Kane had evolved from farmer to admiral, from prisoner to protector, from victim to victim. Earth had grown from isolated world to galactic power. Humanity had learned that the universe was dangerous, but they'd also learned that they were more than capable of handling whatever challenges it presented. And somewhere in Nebraska, a new family had moved into the old Kane farmhouse, planting corn in fields that had once belonged to the man who'd become Earth's greatest defender. The cycle continued, as it always had, as it always would. The galaxy was vast, but humanity was no longer alone. They were no longer helpless. They were no longer afraid. They were ready for whatever came next.